Good morning, everyone. I'm Nora Sova. I'm currently the interim director of the Housing Authority. Housing Authority was established in 1968, so we are about to celebrate our 50th anniversary next year. It was established by General Council resolution approved by Business Committee resolution the following year. Just a little bit about what we currently have. In our inventory, we currently have 198 rental units, and we have 192 home ownership units in our program for a total of 390 units. Since 2012, we've added 22 units to our home ownership inventory, and we've added 15 units that we restrict or we dedicate to our elders. So we've done that 10 units since 2015. Those are all full. A little bit about our sources of funding. Our major source of funding is our Indian Housing Block Grant, and that is received from HUD, and it's based on a formula that HUD puts together comprised of the need portion of our area. Our service area is a 5-county service area, and our current assisted stock, which is inventory that was built under the 1937 Housing Act. We're currently 5 months, almost 6 months into 2017, and we have not received any of that funding. So the Housing Authority is a little unique situation. We have to pre-fund ourselves, or we would discontinue operations every year waiting for the federal government to fund us. So we have managed that well. We have money to do that every year, and we will continue to do that in the future. Our estimate for 2017 is $2.6 million. Our actual receipt is almost always less than that, so about 2.3 is what we really expect that we'll get. Our next largest income is our program income, and program income is the money that we bring in from our house payments and our rentals and any other thing that we do. If we sell property or if we sell equipment, that goes into our program income budget. Since 2013, we've participated with PSO and Arkla Gas in their energy rebate programs. So we have our rehabilitation of our units incorporates the requirements for energy conservation that PSO and Arkla Gas require to qualify for their rebates, and we've actually received over $138,000 in rebates from those two companies since 2013. Last year we generated $794,577 in revenue off of our programs, off of our rebates. We're fortunate to have a third source of income, which is an Indian Community Development Block Grant. In 2011, the Housing Authority pushed HUD a little bit at the local office in Oklahoma City to allow us to even apply for the grant. We were told we couldn't apply. We pushed that, and we got that pushed through, and we were the first Indian Housing Authority in the Southern Plains region to receive an Indian Community Development Block Grant. We used that block grant for housing rehabilitation, and we used it strictly for elder housing rehabilitation. In 2011, we received $800,000. In 2012, we did not apply. The tribe applied, and this is a grant that only one entity of the tribe can apply for each year, so we have to have permission of the tribe to apply. They did give us permission in 2012, 13, 14, 15, and 16, and we were awarded in each one of those years. The maximum grant for ICDBG is $800,000. In order to get that, we have to commit some of our funding, and we have done that with each of these grant applications. Generally, it's $270,000 per grant. Because of the current amount of grants that we have, we've committed a total of $1.2 million in order to get the maximum grant for the ICDBG.
Nora, can you tell the people what those acronyms stand for?
Indian Community Development Block Grant is ICDBG. IHBG is Indian Housing Block Grant. That is automatic. That is money we get because we are an Indian Housing Authority. The ICDBG grant is a highly competitive grant. Our final source of funding is tribal funds. These, of course, have to be approved by the General Council. We use these funds currently for our Elder Home Improvement Program. Anyone over the age of 62 can qualify for this program. Income doesn't matter. All of our programs funded through HUD or ICDBG are income-based. You have to be low income to qualify. Tribal funds can be used for people who aren't at that level of income, so it doesn't matter. If you're over the age of 62, we will qualify you for this program. The other program that we use these funds for is our transitional housing program. A couple of years ago, the business committee tasked us with finding a place for people who had been affected by natural disasters or domestic abuse or who had lost their home to fire with immediate emergency housing. I think they were being assisted in some cases by putting them up in hotels, which was very expensive. So we took 8 of our units in our existing stock and dedicated those to this transitional housing program. These are small units. 4 of them are 1 bedroom, 4 of them are 2 bedroom. So we're limited in the number of people in a household that can be in those. But we also don't require income information from those people. So we have to fund that through other than HUD money. And we fund that with tribal funds when it's available. Last year, we actually received $250,000 in tribal funds. The year before that, it was a little bit less. We received $241,000 in tribal funds. Every year, HUD requires us to tell them what we're going to do with their money. So we set our goals every year at the beginning of the year, and we send those to HUD. Last year, our goals for the major rehabilitation of homes was 3. We actually did 48 major rehabilitations of homes last year. We said we were going to do 22 elder homes, and we actually completed 109 elder home rehabilitation projects. Our goal last year for down payment and closing cost grants was 13. We did 14, and that was everyone who qualified for the program that applied, we did serve. New home ownership units, we try to add new units every year, although we don't get funding from HUD to build or buy new units. We have to take the funding they give us and allocate it as we see fit or as we have a need. And we said we were going to add 3 units, we added 4 units last year. Maintenance of our properties is a requirement of our Indian Housing Block Grant. We did 488 work orders on units that we own. We also did another 500 plus work orders on elder homes. And our ICDBG grants, we were scheduled to do 34 units last year, and we actually did 60. The numbers on our funding, in 2016, we spent $3.3 million in Indian Housing Block Grant funding. We spent all of our program income that we took in programs for affordable housing, and that was $794,000. Our ICDBG, we spent $650,000 of that available grant money, and we spent the $250,000 in tribal funds that we received. A visual breakdown, this is a little hard to see, of our funding. 66% is Indian Housing Block Grant. 16% comes from our program income. 13% came from our Indian Community Development Grant, and 5% of our funding came from tribal funds. That was in 2016. This is how we spent that money. Maintenance of housing units, $1.3 million. That includes the salaries of the employees in that department. we're required and we are funded through our block grant fund to maintain our 1937 Housing Act housing stock. So we have to dedicate a portion of our funding to maintaining those units. This includes all of the units from the 1937 Housing Act as well as the current act that we operate under, which is NAHASDA. Our housing management programs, we spent $1.1 million. Again, that includes the salaries of the employees. That also includes insurance on all of our units. It includes our legal expense. It includes our down payment and closing cost grants, all of those programs that fall here. Major rehab of units, $504,000. When we say the difference between maintenance and major rehab, maintenance is just to replace something in a house that has stopped working, or to go in after we have a move out and rehabilitate that unit. We have to repair the holes, we have to replace the floors generally and the doors. That's when we get into replacing roofs, windows, HVAC units, that is considered major rehabilitation of units. So there's a bit of a breakdown. $414,000 was spent on elder homes. $391,000 was spent on the purchase of new units. $138,000 was actual grant money for the down payment and closing cost grant. $124,000 of our block grant money was spent to fund our match for the ICDBG grants. Our planning and admin was $742,000. That includes our administration, our procurement, and our accounting departments, as well as our boards. And we had $35,000 in loan repayments. The Housing Authority, the future of funding for housing authorities will include going out and trying to find ways to extend the use of your money. So they encourage you to go out and find ways to leverage the funds that we own with other programs out there. One of those programs is the HUD 184 home loan. The Housing Authority has 6 HUD 184 home loans in the name of the Housing Authority for homes we've purchased, and they're currently in our lease purchase program. So the homeowners are making payments on those homes, and that payment goes directly to repay these loans. That's what that $34,000 is. The Housing Authority is the tribally designated housing entity for the nation, but we are required to have our own audit every year. It's a requirement of our HUD funding. They won't continue to fund us if we don't have that audit. So we have an audit every year. It audits our financial statements and our expenditures, as well as our compliance with regulations, programs, and the laws. In 2016, we had an unmodified audit report, which is the best you can get. There were no findings, and we have had no findings or question costs in our last 3 audits. Actually, probably 6 out of the last 7 audits, we've had no findings and no question costs and no concerns. Besides that independent financial audit, HUD comes in every 3 to 5 years and audits. They look at everything. They look at all of our files. They look at all of our purchasing. They look at all of our environmental reviews. And in 2008, we weren't very good. In 2013, we had no findings and no concerns on that HUD audit. So we're quite proud of our accomplishments, and we've come a long way in the last few years. Our major event in 2016, which was the fire that occurred on September the 10th of 2016. The fire is of undetermined origin, but it devastated the operation of the Housing Authority. We lost our complete maintenance department, every piece of equipment, every tool that we owned. We lost 8 vehicles, we lost tractor, we lost trailers, we lost all of our lawn mowing equipment, we lost everything that department used to operate. Also in that same building, upstairs, we had our accounting department, accounting records, our IT department, which included all of our servers and any extra electronic equipment that we owned, and all of that was a total loss. The other half of the building, because we actually had two buildings side by side connected with a walkway, was our administration building and our warehouse. Those buildings suffered fire and water damage, smoke and water damage, not fire damage. So those buildings are having to be gutted completely. They'll be down to a shell. Everything has to come out. So those were an 80% loss. Our IT systems we have a backup plan, and we had an emergency plan, which worked very well. Our backup of our IT systems and all of our electronic data was done on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. The fire was Saturday morning at 2 o'clock. So we lost about an hour's worth of data. And we actually, when we back up, we run the backup on our server, and we take that disk to the bank, stick it in a safety deposit box. We do that every Friday. So the most that we would ever lose would be a week's worth of data, but we actually lost only a few hours worth of data. So we're very fortunate. We were able to, our maintenance department was up and running, back to normal operation in 2 days, semi-normal. We used what tools we had left on our vehicles. And it took us a couple more days to relocate to a new building because we had no phone systems, we had no computers, we had no desks, we had no paper, we had nothing. So it took us a couple of days to go out and buy all those things, but we did, and we operated out of a warehouse with no water, no bathrooms for about 2 months, maybe a little less. But we are now at a temporary location. It's 19 Northeast 20th Street, which is, if you look at the tax commission, if you stand at the tax commission door and look across Gore, past Lost Trace restaurant, you'll see our buildings. That is all I have for today. I'll entertain any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we have an online question about the default mortgages, how they're handled, judgment, and collections.
So default mortgages, once a client fails to pay for 3 months, we take that client through the legal process of foreclosure. At the 3-month point, when we've failed to be successful in getting that client to come in and make some kind of alternate arrangement, we actually send that file to our attorney, and at that point, the attorney handles all coordination with the client. We are still trying to keep people in their houses, so we will still negotiate at the point that that is in the attorney's hands if the client is willing. In some cases they're not, or they're not able to, and in those cases we go through formal foreclosure. The problem with foreclosure is you will get the house back, but you don't get any of the money generally. So the debt remains to the housing authority. And we have a house in many cases which is in need of a tremendous amount of repair. And that's why we spend a lot of money on rehabilitation of units.
And we have another question online about do you see a time in the future, is that the one? When a program will be established that will allow tribal members who have land and would like to build a home on that land?
I think that's a possibility. Right now, most of our homes are purchased in the 1937 Housing Act. That was done a lot. We built homes on trust property. We found the same problems we have with homes on fee simple property. Often, not often, but sometimes the family failed to meet their commitment, and we had to take the house back. The problem with taking the house back when it's on individually owned trust property is we don't own the land. We only have a lease on the land. So we can take the house back to the end of our lease, and that's a 25-year lease in the beginning with an automatic 25-year extension. So we could have control of that house for a total of 50 years. once that 50 years is up, then that house goes back to the landowner. So whoever we put in there will never own that house. So we have a lot of issues with trust property. The HUD 184 loan is now available to tribal members to build a house on trust property. And we often encourage people, if you have the financial means to do that, to certainly look into that program. At this point, we don't have any plans, but anything's possible. Anything could change. And if the funding's there, we would go to the place that we feel we have the most need. Okay.
Nora, I appreciate the housing very much, because without the housing, we wouldn't have, I wouldn't have a home. But lately, y'all are going to do roofs, and we had people, well, I've had twice, maybe 3 times, people come to my house to evaluate the roof and measure it, and then the last person came out and wanted to know what color I wanted, and they would begin working, he said, in a few weeks. And so that never came about. As I heard, I didn't go to the meeting, but as I heard that the CBC went to the housing and they stopped our roofs from being, and that was a grant that you were going to fix our roofs with. And the excuse that the young lady gave me was the roofs only last for 10 years and they would have to replace all the little brackets in there. I was under the impression that the metal roofs would last a lifetime, and I was going to be, we were really happy that we were going to get a metal roof. And then, then the bubble burst because the CBC went and changed it. I don't know exactly why they were involved, but, we had already been evaluated for, and my sister was the one that was really, really upset because she already has a roof, and she wanted her roof to be repaired, and I kind of was angry with her because I thought, well, maybe when she spoke up, that's when they changed everything. But in my opinion, if you get professional roofers, that shouldn't happen. And what about these 10 roofs out here? They look like they're perfectly fine. I don't know, the answers to any of that, but I was kind of upset myself. We are getting a new roof, but it's not going to be the metal.
That's correct. And
Nora, can I speak to that?
yes.
Okay. It was a test roof. And yeah, they're nice. They should be a lifetime type of roof. We're finding out that the cost factor of it, and then for us to have to come back in 10 years to replace the screws and to replace the waterproofing in it. The cost value, I mean, you could only get, what did we come up with, 15 homes? And that's not good just for 15 people. So.
It's a roof, and it was a grant. It wasn't the CBC's business to change their plans.
Nora, go ahead and speak to the grant part.
It is a grant. We're using ICDBG grant funds, and we've never done a metal roof before. So I will take responsibility for the fact that the first one we did didn't turn out well. We are redoing that roof. We're replacing that metal roof, but we figured out we weren't good at that.
The grant did not speak to metal roofs.
That's correct. The grant does not. The grant is for rehabilitation. So we had people that came to us and said, we want a metal roof, and we tried to accommodate those requests, and we understand why you'd like to have those. But we found that metal roofs are more than twice the cost of a regular roof. So we've cut down by 50% the number of roofs we can do, the more roofs that we do that are metal. And the more research we did, we found that you are correct. The metal will last 40 years. But the screws that attach that metal to the roof do not last 40 years. They have washers on them, and those washers deteriorate. The roofs that go on individual homes are often different than the metal roofs that you see on a commercial building. There's standing seam metal roofs on commercial buildings where those metal screws and those washers are covered, but it's very expensive. It's not something that we could afford to do on any homes. So we will do your roof. We will do it with the grant, and we will make sure that you have a 30-year shingled roof that we will take care of as time goes by. So I apologize that you weren't able to get the roof that you want, but we will give you a new roof.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And where I live, there's fires constantly, grass fires, and that was one of my concerns. Having a metal roof would help the, catching fire. I understand your.
Anything else? Yes, sir. Okay.
I have two questions. One, did you have insurance on your buildings? And the second question, who is the board? Who is the housing board? And do you have a housing board? And then I would ask the third question. I hear many times, that work that's in the rehab and such is shoddy. Is that really true? I hear a lot that the work is not the best and has to be repeated.
I'll start with your first question. Yes, we had insurance on everything. We've already settled on the vehicles that we lost, the 8 vehicles. We've already recovered that cost. We're fully insured on the contents of our building, on the electronics of our building, and on the structure of the building. We have we had so many years worth of material that we lost in that building that the list of contents is huge. And every day we think, I forgot to put that on there. So we haven't settled yet on the contents portion, but we're very close. And when you think just contents of a building, we lost all of our keys to all of our houses. So all of our rental units, where we keep keys to those units, we lost all of those. So our insurance settlement has to include the cost to go out and replace all of those lock sets on those houses. So it's not just the stuff that we lost, it's all the stuff that affected everything else. So we're fully insured, I'm happy to say. Our board right now consists of the business committee members as well as Mr. Robert Baker. That's our current board. As far as shoddy work, if you have names from people, please let me know, because our goal is to do high quality, and we stress this with our employees every day. We want high quality work that everyone would be proud to have in their home, that those people doing that work would be proud to have in their home. And I think if you talk to some people who've recently done bathroom remodels I think you'll find that they're very pleased. But anyone who feels that they've had work done in their house that is not up to par, please give me a call. I'll come out and look at it.
Nora, there's a question from Oklahoma City, and they're asking, do you see a time in the future when a program will be established that will allow tribal members who have land and would like to build a home on that land, more or less out of jurisdiction, I guess?
And I think we addressed that a little bit earlier. I think maybe you were in the back of the room. So as I said, anything's possible.
Yes. One of my questions was about insurance, and that was, it's good that we were insured, you said the CBC was on the board, and who else?
Mr. Robert Baker.
Baker. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see, the one question, since insurance, you're going to get money to rebuild.
That is correct. We have closed on a request for proposals from A&E firms, architect and engineer firms, to design the putback, and we'll be rebuilding.
Well, that's good. You're going to do bids. We're known for sole sourcing. Okay. Besides that comment, I've got something important to say. The HUD has a Section 202 elderly handicapped housing program. and it's right about 1.5 million now, and it's for about, I think it's 25 units, and you know, like you can have independent units too, you know, like a one-bedroom house or unit, and then there's also office or like a little community center thing there. But anyway, Lawton got one, and they're located on what's before F? E. I think it's on E, 10th Street and E. If you ever go look at it, it looks like a little motel there, but that's apartments. It's not individual. But anyway, so we need to go after it as soon as possible. And I don't know when the next deadline is, but I don't know who would do it. The Housing Authority, or we have a proposal writer, but it's just this one person for the whole tribe, you know. And then we could go the consultant route, you know, in the budget, or I don't know that budget. I didn't see the full. I don't know, but when we do the FY18 budget, we really need a planning department in there, or fancy name, research and development, you know, with about 4 or 5, as many proposal writers and work processors that we can get to go after that federal money. So what I really liked is that you said 7 years with no findings in the independent audits. Now, on that 202 program, do you have to have I think it's called a sponsor or something, and you can either create your own corporation, you know, have a board, separate board for it, or you could use the Housing Authority as a sponsor. And Lawton Housing Authority, they're the ones that done that 202.
Hey, Gabby.
So because of that accounting, it might work.
Gabby,
Yeah.
you think you could sidebar with Nora on that? Nora, I do want to compliment you for stepping in your interim role down there. What is the waiting list right now? That's always the question.
Our rental waiting list is 138. I think I looked at that yesterday. Our home ownership waiting list is only about 9 right now. We've served a lot of
There you
those
go. Only about 9. Only about 9. Now, that home ownership used to be 300. Now, that's good work. Any other questions? Thank you, Nora. Comanche Nation Housing. Thank you, Nora.